In today's stories, I want to share one of the strangest, most frustrating, and honestly most surreal experiences I've ever had. Something that sounds like a sitcom at first, but in reality, it happened to me and it escalated in ways I never could have imagined. It's the kind of situation that makes you laugh, cry, and question human behavior all at the same time. It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning. I had recently bought a brand new electric car, a sleek, futuristic model I had been dreaming about for months. I researched everything about it, watched countless reviews, compared every feature, and finally decided to take the plunge. I loved the quiet hum it made when it powered on. It felt like stepping into the future. What I didn't expect was that this futuristic car would cause a full-blown neighborhood incident. I live in a suburban neighborhood where everyone knows, or thinks they know, everything about everyone else. There are always a few people who spend way too much time watching what others do. And then there's Karen. She's lived across the street for years and has a very particular way of supervising everyone's life, as if she were hired by the neighborhood association to maintain absolute control over everyone's behavior. I had exchanged polite greetings with her before, but our interactions were always brief and tense, the kind that leave you thinking, she's harmless, but annoying. That morning, I parked my new car in front of my house, plugged it in, and went inside to grab a cup of coffee. As electric cars do, mine made a low, futuristic humming sound when it powered on. A small, subtle sound, barely noticeable unless you were paying attention. I thought nothing of it. It was normal. A few minutes later, I noticed Karen standing on her porch, glaring at my car like I had just stolen the Declaration of Independence. She crossed her arms and called out, "Is that your car making that noise?" Her tone was sharp, accusatory, the kind of tone that immediately sets off red flags in your brain. "Yes," I replied calmly. "It's electric. It just makes a sound when it powers on. That's normal." Her eyes narrowed even further. She stomped back inside without saying another word. I shrugged it off. She's sensitive, I guess, I thought. An hour later, I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting when I heard the unmistakable wail of police sirens outside. My heart stopped. Sirens in a quiet suburban neighborhood? That's not normal. I rushed to the window and saw a police car parked directly in front of my house. My stomach sank. Two officers walked up to my door. One held a notepad. The other had that calm but serious expression officers always have when they're dealing with suspicious situations. "Ma'am," one of them began, "we received a call about a suspicious vehicle making strange noises outside your house. Can you tell us what's going on?" I froze. Suspicious vehicle, strange noises, and then I realized they were talking about my car. The harmless hum of my electric vehicle had apparently been interpreted as a potential crime in progress. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's my electric car. It makes that sound when it starts. That's all." They looked at each other, raised eyebrows, but after a few questions about the car, its make, and whether anyone was inside it, they nodded and left. I thought the ordeal was over. I was wrong. Karen was not satisfied with just involving the police. Over the next few days, her behavior escalated. She started leaving passive-aggressive notes on my windshield, complaining about the disturbing noise. One morning, I found a note taped to my front door that read, "Please be mindful of the neighborhood. Your car noises are alarming. This is a quiet street." I tried reasoning with her. I knocked on her door one evening. "Hi, I just wanted to clarify my car is electric. That humming sound is normal. There's no danger, no crime, nothing suspicious." She didn't even look at me. "I already called the authorities once," she said coldly. "If the noise continues, I won't hesitate to call again." I was baffled. At this point, I realized I had two choices: either escalate and argue, or try to survive the week without letting it ruin my life. I chose the latter, but Karen seemed determined to push the situation further. Then came the day she decided to escalate publicly. I was outside, charging my car, when she pulled up in her SUV, got out, and started filming me on her phone. "You're disturbing the neighborhood. This is unacceptable," she shouted, waving her phone like evidence. Neighbors peeked out of their windows. My heart raced. I had never felt so targeted, so small, yet so frustrated all at once. I took a deep breath and said, "It's an electric car. There's nothing illegal or dangerous here. Please stop filming me." She ignored me and walked back to her car, muttering about calling 911 again. I realized she was doing this not because of any real problem, but because she had found a way to insert herself into my life and feel in control. It was exhausting, humiliating and infuriating. Over the next few weeks, the saga continued. Karen reported me to the homeowners association, sent more passive-aggressive notes, and occasionally stood on her porch glaring while I tried to live my life. I started keeping logs of every time my car powered on, noting the time, the duration, and witnesses just in case the police were called again. Eventually, I learned to laugh at it in a very dark, ironic way. Here I was, a responsible, law-abiding citizen, being treated like a criminal because my car sounded futuristic. And the craziest part? Other neighbors started to notice. Some would wink at me from across the street. Others whispered about how ridiculous Karen had become. I realized I wasn't alone. Karen wasn't just my problem. She was a case study in suburban obsession. Months later, the situation finally de-escalated, but not without leaving a mark. I learned a lot about patience, boundaries, and how some people just need to feel powerful over others to validate themselves. I also learned that the future is noisy, even if it doesn't make the sounds you expect. So yes, my car made a strange noise, but the real story was never about the noise. It was about Karen, about entitlement, about the absurd ways some people police the world around them. And while I wish it had been a simple, quiet morning, I can't deny it made for a story worth telling, one that reminds all of us to breathe, stay calm, and maybe invest in a car that sounds like a spaceship if it keeps the neighbors entertained. Because in the end, life is too short to live quietly when Karen lives across the street.